Good morning, good afternoon, evening to everyone, depending on where you are. And I want to extend a warm welcome uh, to this Water Energy for Food Lessons Learned webinar series. As you know, through this series, we are exploring lessons learned from the program's 5 years of operations, covering key themes and related insights explored by program innovators and staff. And hopefully the insights today reflect on our achievement challenges as well as provide suggestions for future programming. And today's topic is the second session in this series, and the topic for today would be best practices on gender integration within challenge funds. So on introduction, my name is Jatin Yadav. I'm the Senior Technical Advisor at the Secretariat Unit for V4F program. And today I'll be moderating two panels. For the first panel, we have Dr. Ahmed Radi, who's founder and CEO of EGMAC from Egypt. So Rumbidzai Mashoni, who's the Civil Engineer and Construction Manager at Onyx Earth from Zimbabwe. And also we have Ms. Gwen Mekra, Head of Project and Partnership at Village Link, who was the innovator from Southeast Asia from Myanmar. So they will join me to discuss the gender integration activities in their businesses, their experience with working with V4F, and the recommendation that they have looking forward on how to make gender mainstreaming a key aspect for SMEs. And for the second panel, I'll be joined by our implementing hub staff from different region. We'll have Sasmita Patnaik from Southeast Asia Hub, who's the Regional Innovation Hub Advisor as well as the Gender Advisor there. We'll have Ms. Mena Sabri, who's the environmental policy expert as well as gender advisor at Chemonix Egypt, which was part of V4F's MENA hub. And they are also now implementing the V4F 2.0 specifically for the MENA region. And then we also have Batanai Koleta, who's the gender equality and social inclusion advisor at the Southern Central Africa hub. So yeah, they will be part of the second panel, which will highlight the gender mainstreaming activities from the implementer's perspective from our hubs. Just some things on housekeeping. So we'll pause for a Q&A between the two panels, along with having one after the second and final panel. So for our audience that is in attendance, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat during the panels, and we'll make sure to cover them during the Q&As as and when permitted. So yeah, before we dive into the panels, I wanted to share a little bit about V4F programs. So in case someone new is joining us, they get accustomed to it. So V4F, as you all know, is like a 96 million US dollars program that supported small and medium-sized enterprises who had solutions, technologies, or business models that provided water, food, energy, food, or water and energy food nexus innovations, specifically helping smallholder farmers and other end users in Southeast Asia, Southern Central Africa, East Africa, West Africa, and the MENA region. The program, while operating in these 5 regions, supported 172 innovators in the last 5 years, who came from 44 countries within the mentioned regions. As you can see, next slide, please. Each innovator received a customized support package that reflected their unique needs as well as the environment and context in which they operated in. So for the innovator, they could receive direct grants, customized technical assistance, investment facilitation support, helping them raise much needed private capital. There was capacity development through trainings, webinars, workshop. Enabling environment support was a key aspect, trying to help innovators in navigating through complex regulation, laws, and policies that affected their businesses. And finally, we did um, knowledge generation and facilitations through peer-to-peer learning, convenings, where we try to document and disseminate best practices, lessons, pivots, failures that would help our innovators in their journey going forward. So yeah, and today uh, we will discuss the topic on gender, but let me just put out the results of this program so you can understand the context in which we were operating. I won't go through all of them, but I think the key aspect of the program was that it exceeded its result in terms of water saved, energy, reduction in GHG emissions, while benefiting at least 6 million users across the regions, and over exceeded the targets that was put forth. Out of 6 million users, at an overall program level, uh, there were percentage of women end users was more than 25%, and in some regions it even went to above 40% of women end users being represented as the ones benefiting from uh, the climate innovations. So on that front, we will now shift to our focus on gender integration, which was a critical element for our program. And no matter the results that you see on the screen, the program tried to integrate gender as a cross-cutting theme in almost all the activities that we did, and some of the supports that you saw that we gave, whether it was grant, technical assistance, capacity building, enabling environment. So everything we tried to see how we can integrate gender and always focus on it so that the approach that we take for innovation scaling is holistic when it comes to this cross-cutting theme. Um, so yeah, so without much ado, that's a little bit of explanation from my side. I'll move to our innovator panel, and then start with the key question on how they started their journey as an innovator, and what were the challenges faced by them in integrating gender, and how probably they overcame. So yeah, so let me invite Miss Quinn from Village Link to share their story, and then we will move to uh, our Zimbabwean innovator Onyx Earth, and then at the end we'll hear from EG Mag. Uh, so, so Quinn, if you can hear me, please feel free to jump in
I can
and
hear.
share your journey.
Yes. Can you one second. I don't know why I have an echo. Okay, so good morning and good evening. Uh, for my side, it's 7:30 my side. So my name is Quyên, and I'm a head of program and partnership from Village Link in Myanmar. So we are a member of the We4F family. So I have been involved in the program for more than 3 years now. So I think we running a extension service to provide the advisory service for farmer, from crop farmer, livestock farmer, and aquaculture farmer. Total, we support about 850,000 farmers in Myanmar, of which about 31% is women. So of course, for a country very poor like Myanmar, that is a extraordinary effort and I would think that also lucky for us that we managed to onboard that more than almost 300,000 farmers in total. So I just want to share a little bit in the perspective from us. So first of all, Myanmar, before the political changes, we launching the app in the very favorable environment where we are among of the first application in Myanmar, and therefore we have a lot of market to enter, and everybody very excited. So that is, I think, one of advantage for us. But of course, we the lesson we learned the most that how we manage to onboard that much of farmer is basically we changing our UX UI design is a critical to successful to onboard women user. The simple navigation and clear language and low data requirement, and we every 3 months we would change a new version, and we send our designer go to the team watching women how to navigate the app, and we change constantly. So in the first 2 years of launching the product, we basically changing more than 10 different versions of the app, and changing from 14 steps of asking women to join the app to simplify only 5 steps. So that is the first thing. The second thing is we say we have to focus on the woman lead economic activity to be in the application to involve them. So basically we in Myanmar, the labor of division is quite clear, and we basically focus on the activity which women can have a power to make a decision and make a change, and we focus on that activity to attract the woman and also show the value added, and then to encourage the woman to feel relevant and enjoy. So that is the two main lesson. Since we joining we for F, of course I will have opportunity. A lot of things we run the company by our institution. We just think that it makes sense. But when we joined the We4App program, we were learning about gender. It's much more, the commitment is much more inclusion. And then we make it into the policy much more systematic and measurable action across the program and team. So we changing from the our own team that we hire the woman staff, even the IT majority of member of our IT team also a woman, and then we very committed to form our program staff from the community engagement. We basically set a target to try to engage the woman in every level of the our company, and therefore in the end, so we were able to uh, integrate the gender issue throughout the company. So we for also supported our journey by targeted the technical assistant um, throughout the workshop and peer-to-peer learning. I attend a lot of workshop in which other leader from different companies share their journey, how to bring the woman to become much more active, how to provide the better service for the female client, and then which help us to better understand the practical approach to gender integration. So learning directly from other innovation, and then also have a similar constraints, and it's were very particularly valuable for us. And as it provide a real example where we can just apply and then modify it for Myanmar context. So, and in addition that gender related KPI, introduced by V4F. At first, of course, I argue and even cry over the KPI, which I think like imposed by some Mr. I have to say. But in the end, I was so appreciate, because in the end, I look at back and I think that the KPI actually is a positive pressure and encourage us to move faster and be more intentional and check the progress more uh, forcefully than before. And that is, I think, the main help which I got from the program. And so suggestion, I would say I don't have so much suggestion, because in terms of gender, I would think we are a learner more and a practitioner rather than a policy maker. But we should have a few suggestions, we would say, for a different in the future program. Then we would say that probably we, for everybody just start in this journey, we would think that we should combine the ambition of the target with the practical guidance. Because if you should give only a KPI target, then sometimes it's difficult for us to know how we can achieve the target. Also, we think that invest in the peer learning is very important, because we feel we can learn and share much more from the peer. And then using the KPI is the enabler, the same way as I say, it should not only the requirement, but it's something to have to inspire to achieve. So that is all the lesson from Village Link. Thank you.
Great. Now, thanks a lot, Gwen, for sharing your journey as well as the challenges and suggestions. You operated in a very difficult context in the last few years, we know, and we appreciate your efforts there. So I'll come back to you on other aspects, but I'll just move on to Ms. Rumbit Sai from Onyx Earth. If you can share your side of story and how you went about things, please, over to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rumbi Jaimachwan, civil engineer and project manager for Onyx Earth Renewables. We have been part of We4F for the past 2 years now, and we've been one of the leading companies in terms of renewable energy. Our company focuses on providing renewable energy where we convert all waste into renewable energy, and particularly biogas. So, in terms of onboarding women as end users, our solutions are basically designed with a strong focus on primary users, household energy, particularly women. So, and that will be providing clean and affordable biogas, which will help to reduce women's exposure to indoor air pollution and cut the time spent collecting firewood. Especially in Africa, there is shortage of energy, so most women are found collecting firewood. So providing biogas is an easy way to cut the time spent in collecting firewood and getting less exposure to the outdoor pollution, but improve health outcomes and greater economic. Tried to provide this energy so that it will make life easier for women. No, women are our main focus, where we are engaging farmers. With farmers are our target area with more waste that they don't know how to use. So we could make use of that waste and convert it into energy that is biogas. So in terms of our hiring and promoting women as leaders, our company has promoted the gender balanced hiring and leadership as part of our strategies through the We4F program. Our organization also adopted a workforce composition target of 60% women and 40% men, ensuring a meaningful representation of women across roles. While we are saying our CEO being the male, the top management prior to the female is leading operations and finance administration, reflecting the organization's commitment to women's leadership and decision-making authorities. Because we find in most sectors, men are tend to be more rather than women. Um, so due to We4F programs, we managed to adopt that strategy in empowering women into doing so. It does not only end on our top management, but also our technical hands are mostly 60% and less of men, so that we engage more women in in our participation of the work that we do. And in terms of women-led and inclusive approach, our organization, we prioritize in making decisions closely with the women in communities. Like when when we engage families, we tend to ensure that we assess and analyze their needs. Then we design solutions in relation to the needs that would have get from the women's community engagement strategies. Through these efforts, our company ensures that gender equity is embedded both in its internal governance and structures and give a positive and create community level. And then when it comes to the challenges that we faced before We4F, um, Onyx as biogas, we understand the importance of gender inclusion, but we struggle to apply a structured way. So we lacked clear tools in terms of internal capacity and systems to collect gender aggregated data. But through We4F, we then we helped to close the gaps through practical technical assistance workshops and hands-on guidance. We attended so many workshops that helped us and to understand, to integrate this gender into our business model. So it improved that a lot in terms of the structure, because we're also struggling in terms of how we can put a structure where there is more women um, involved in participation of our day-to-day activities. As you know, most construction companies has top management and other workers as men rather than women. So it was difficult. It was a difficult process for us to be accepted because most people tend to understand men as decision makers rather than women. So with that, we for it helped us close that gap through by providing that technical assistance in the workshops that we attended, the gender links workshops. It helped us engage and to understand how others are doing in their companies. Then suggestions that we would probably like we for it to support in gender mainstreaming. Would like as for us, we are more technical, so would wish that if providing long-term hands-on technical assistance rather than short-term interventions, it will help us in gender practices and sustainability as our business scale as well. Then also as my fellow colleague has said, Queen, she mentioned about peer learning. It is very viable for us to also that to facilitate deeper interlearning networks, especially among organizations, so that we can get to exchange technologies, whether it's internationally or locally. We can get to engage to each other and then share our practices and experiences on how they are also doing and they are growing in their organization. Then another thing, I think offering dedicated funds and initiatives for gender-focused pilots. It allows us as innovators to test and refine gender-responsive approaches to layer risk before we can actually establish a whole thing. Probably should have those kind of funds would help us very much. Then another thing, um, providing and developing practical sector-specific gender toolkits so that innovators can easily adopt to operational context. Because most times we get to have challenges where we can engage people in how we do things, but we don't have the toolkits for them to do it practically. Well, the only people who would have the practical tools will be just a few from the company, and then that is limited. So if we could get those kind of practical sector specific toolkits, particularly for the gender that we are, it would help us in our operational context. I think that's all. Thank you.
Great. No, thanks a lot, Rombitsai. I think that was, uh, I think, an example of a holistic approach where you worked on uh, integrating more women in the leadership as well as the staff. Also, a key point on designing solutions and taking feedback of women so that the solutions actually are work and usable by them. And I think one very key unique point is that not just designing solution, but also designing engagement on field, keeping women in mind, how you will approach them, what could be the benefit. I think that's a key lessons. And we took your suggestions as well, which I'll probably summarize a bit later in the program. But thanks a lot for sharing your story and your journey on gender mainstreaming. And with that, I'll move to Dr. Ahmed Radi from Egypt to share your journey, story, challenges, suggestions. Over to you.
Thank you overall. Evening or good morning for all the our journey in EGMAG, it's more than 5 years. We are a Black Soldier Fly company, and we are working in new technology regarding organic waste recycling to protein fertilizers. Uh, uh, we incredibly proud this year. It's more our production sites. 100 of our production team is women, and there is two staff trained last 2 years with the supporting with V4F. We have we made some studies on how to integrate our workforce in women inside our uh, technical and sought out facility sites. How can we promote them? How to making a retention for them? And there is a woman. I think it's more than 50% of our team. It's more 4 years plus in working with the EGMAG. Also, we launched a specific woman empowerment project in Upper Egypt. Uh, we are training the women how to making a micro units with them. Based in IoT and based on something of digital platform, and making a decentralized unit and increasing their income in the Upper Egypt. Up till now, last 5 months ago, we established 10 units. and in the beginning of 2026, we reach up to 1,000 units for women. I think uh, the workforce in our company, especially the daily task basis production, it's the productivity increased when we integrate our woman empowerment strategy from last 2 years ago. Also, we have some challenges in the beginning of our strategy to integrate woman empowerment in our company. Looks like maternity, looks like flexibility of work hour. Also, we put some flexibility for them, and making flexibility days of work in the office and in the production. We make some we made the working hours on daily 7 hours, not 8 hours.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Ahmed. And just one more point to you. Based on your journey and the challenges that you have seen, what is that you would recommend in terms of um, what a program like V4F or future such programs can actually take some steps that will help more practically to organizations like you in integrating gender?
I think it's in the future wise, more financial inclusion in the microfinancing, also how to or something of making of kits for women, how to building the woman empowerment inside the company. Also, reach more reach to local hub expert. Each country it's different from Southeast Asia and the MENA region, and Africa has a specific or special community. Uh, so my suggestion here, more reach or more approach to the local hub expert working with women. Also, I think it's if there is something of mentorship network, working with the female micro entrepreneurs, teaching them how to scale
Okay, Dr. Ahmed, I
times,
think
or the company need
we lost you for 5 seconds. Sorry, if you can repeat.
more about how to. We lost you for 5 seconds. Sorry, if you can repeat. Okay. The last point regarding to the finance background for the startups, for the founders, and for the founding team. I think this is some issue in the management we learned about in trial and error. We need the We4F program or next program to making some lecture, continuous learning about this issue.
Great. Thanks a lot, Dr. Ahmed, for your views. I think some of those are similar to what your colleagues have said, that I mean, gender integration is not a short-term process. It's generally a long-term and a continuous cycle of moving from one phase to the other, and keep working on it. And especially, it's also an iterative process with field visits and taking knowledge and feedback. So that's some great points for the future programming. And also, like you shared some of those key strategies of how to make the work environment more suitable for women with the 7-hour work day and the flexible days. And I think those uh, those actions and strategies cannot be like underestimated of how much they impact on the productivity as well as the well-being of women involved in the whole value chain. Uh, so yeah, thanks a lot for sharing your views. I would also like to appreciate um, our innovators, Rumbit Zai from Onyx Earth and Kuyen from Village Link as well, for sharing your stories and suggestions for future programming. It's very practical in nature as well. So yeah, with that, I will move on to next, the second panel, which we will conduct with our hub staff who actually worked with the innovators that you see, plus hundreds of more innovators across the regions, and we will try to understand on from their perspective. What were the key strategies that they incorporated, how it all started from the need assessment. At the secretariat level, we had this vision of donors to integrate gender as much as possible in all the aspect of business. And of course, the key critical point is that the innovator buy-in on gender mainstreaming strategy is very important. Without that buy-in, no matter what steps we do and within the program, they may not bear results. So starting from innovator buy-in to our gender mainstreaming strategies, we and then implementing our ESG guidelines that detailed out our approaches for the hubs to carry out. So we'll hear from them now, and in this order, like we'll just start with the same question. You can reflect on your journey of how it all started with respect to gender integration. What were the challenges that you faced? What worked? What didn't work? And then highlight if you have some key examples or approaches that are beneficial for the ecosystem at this stage. And then I will come again on the suggestions part at the end. So yeah, here we'll start with our colleague from Southern Central Africa, Batanai. Then we will move on to MENA from the MENA region, and then we'll come back to Sasmita to wrap it up for us. So Batanai, over to you.
Thank you, Jatin. I hope I'm audible. So I'll just briefly reflect on my journey with innovators in the Southern and Central Africa Hub, and regarding gender integration. So the experience has been such that it started at a very early stage. We did not just introduce the concept of gender mainstreaming or gender integration right at the end or somewhere in the middle. We had what we called the initial assessments or early stage integration. So these were assessments that we were checking for gender intentionality within the innovators. You'd have to demonstrate before you were an innovator or accepted as an innovator, you'd have to demonstrate your intentionality about gender integration. So we're not just asking questions like, do you serve women? But we're going further to ask questions like, how does your solution address the specific constraints, needs, and priorities of women end users or as distributors or as producers? And even ask, how do you integrate the women opinion in your decision making or the design of your innovation? So at that point, whilst there were still applicants, would be able to then tell that this potential applicant has intentionality, so we can work with them to catalyze their innovation, but also to mainstream gender within their innovation. So this already set the tone from day one. And then we would then onboard them. But at that point, would have already made a decision to see where likely that innovator would fall according to our ESG guidelines. So they would either fall in the beginner stage, advanced stage, or intermediate stage. And so within the Central Africa Hub, we would then onboard them and then mandate them to take 2X assessments. So these 2X assessments were my innovation because I wanted them to be able to understand what gender integration is. And these assessments would ask them different parameters about the capacity of women, the percentage of women in leadership, governance, entrepreneurship, in the value chain, and all those. And it would give them an actual result in the end that shows that according to these gender assessments, this is where your organization falls in terms of gender integration. So they'll be able to understand that, okay, if I'm a beginner, then I need to be able to move towards being an intermediate stage or being advanced stage. And at this point, again, what I would then do is to introduce the gender lens investment component, because what I noticed with the innovators is that they are more interested in raising funds because that's what their organizations are doing, making more profit, attracting more funding. So to just introduce a concept of gender that does not have a perceived benefit at that point would not make sense for them. So would indicate to them that, look, if you improve on your gender integration practices, there is this available fund that is that you can access just because you are gender sensitive or aware in your approach. And this worked very well with this, with the innovators. And then more importantly, and linking back to what I've just said, the advisory support that we gave, I think Onyx Rumbidza did mention that the advisory support that we gave for the technical assistance was not just technical assistance overall or general to every other innovator. Remember, I said that we had clustered them into beginner, intermediate, or advanced. So if you are a beginner, then your support would be very early stage. We are looking at making sure that you do no harm, because at that point, you understand that there are issues to do with gender with your business, but you don't understand how your innovation without intention can actually lead to gender inequality. So the support that we are giving, gender smart support, business advisory, is linking to that being you doing good than doing harm. And then for the intermediate innovators, then would focus on them being gender aware. This is where we're developing women-focused distribution channels and creating gender-sensitive marketing and collecting sex disaggregated data. Even at the beginner stage, they were mandated to collect that. But at this point, because they are aware, their needs are more advanced than the beginner stage. So they'll be asking, how do I increase the number of women customers within my business? And so that's the support that we would give. And then if we move on to advanced, this is an innovator that has already moved up the ladder, and they understand the consequences of not being gender aware. And so their approach with us, or the approach that we gave them, was to be gender transformative. And so you'd have them asking, how can we improve our gender policy? How can we improve our HR policy? We had actually one innovator that after the various webinars and the technical assistance, they revised their remuneration policy, because at that point they said that women were earning less for the same amount of work than women, and they realized there's no need for this. So we've had many results within the hub. We have had an increase in women and end users. We have had a number of gender policies that were produced, a number of action plans. Mind you, this was non-mandatory, meaning that it was upon themselves to see that now we need this. We have had requests for gender toolkits and a revision of remuneration policies, like I said. So you'd find that in the end, we moved along with more innovators that were in the intermediate and advanced stage, because those that were in the beginner stage quickly understood that this is not just an NGO topic. This is actually a business case, because if we don't integrate gender in our operations, we are losing money and we are losing valuable input that we could get from women, either as customers or as end users or as leaders within their businesses. And I think another question is, what went? I think all of that went, to be honest. All of that went. We would maybe at the hub level would be to make some of these recommendations mandatory, like having a gender action plan. So at least we can see the plan that the innovator has before they come on board. But I think all those mechanisms did work in the end. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Bathanai. I think you gave the holistic approach of V4F, and I'm pretty sure our other colleagues from the hub would align on that and probably add. So Meena, over to you, and I think your region and context is very different. So please feel free to share of how it was in your hub.
Thank you, Jatin. Good morning and good afternoon. From the very beginning, the MENA Hub operated on the core principle that the inclusion of women as end users, business owners, staff in the innovators' businesses or along the value chain, like supply chain, is the desirable objective. So in order to operationalize this, we integrated gender equality into all of our activities through a 3-level strategy. So as Jatin mentioned at the very beginning, we worked on the macro level, so the broader policy and climate ecosystem, the meso level, building the capacity of institutional partners, like, for example, financial institutions, and on the micro level, which I will be focusing on more, which indicated like providing direct support to innovators to mainstream gender through the inclusion of women, whether externally as end users or along the supply chain, or internally as business owners or the executive level or staff. We also did this carefully, considering like all the socio-cultural, ethnic, and religious particularities of the MENA region. So one of the main approaches is utilizing technical assistance, focusing on gender integration. Some of these examples of these TAs were organizational capacity building, where we encouraged changes in the gender composition of the executive leadership and team building within innovator firms. Another type was gender responsive marketing, so providing TA to help innovators tailor their services and product specifically to needs of women as end users. For example, we had a platform innovator who enhanced their pricing strategy to account for female and base of the pyramid users. Another example was inclusive recruitment, so adopting practices such as gender neutral language in job descriptions and focusing on facts rather than pitches during the assessments to reduce biases as much as possible. Also inclusion in the supply chain. Another innovator also had this TA to specifically identify the needs of women in the back end of the supply chain and develop strategies to address them. We also had other activities like peer-to-peer learning. We hosted internal gender mainstreaming series and the MENA Women Innovate Network webinars. These webinars were developed to support women-led or owned innovators by sharing best practices, challenges, and extending support for gender lens investment, as well as providing tailored services that aim to increase business opportunities. These sessions allowed innovators to conduct deep dives into specific sub-themes, for example, like end-user finance, as Dr. Rodi mentioned, end-user finance products for women, or making the concept of gender integration tangible and useful. Also, another activity was that gender awareness was a permanent fixture of our annual convenings and boot camps, where we use peer learning as a mechanism to help innovators integrate these values into their business models. One of the very funny stories when I used to join the boot camps is hearing like how most of the innovators in the main hub has similar problems, but um, they all solve it according to their country specific situation and how they try to adapt it to be like a solution in their own country, because they always have like a lot of roadblocks in the MENA region, even when it comes to like simple registration or whatever. So you can also see them how they try to get along and like adapt, and hearing them saying the stories and them trying to find a way for themselves to solve these problems was actually very inspiring. Another part was tracking the progress. So we had the rigorous M&E that used gender disregarded data to track the impact on women's income and employment. We had really nice results. So leadership success, more than 50% of the main hub innovations were women-led. Also, there were a lot of instances where innovations changed the gender composition of the executive leadership as a result of the program's policy and direction and TAs. 30% of all the new jobs created within innovator companies were filled by women, and 36 of all end users who reported increased income across the program were women. I think the combination of peer-to-peer learning and also the TAs really helped. Um, the main challenges that we faced were B2B data collection gaps. So innovators operating on a B2B basis struggled to collect disaggregated MEL data for end users. So this made it very difficult to track gender-specific impacts. Also, there is the ecosystem barrier that we face. Like, for example, women in the MENA region often lack the personal collateral, such as land, required by banks so that they can get access to finance for climate-related innovations. I think part of the solution for the first issue with the B2B is that we provided also specialized M&ETA to help B2B innovators develop impact metric frameworks. This allowed them to better document and substantiate the reach to women and base of the permit users. And this also is one of my suggestions is like whenever there is any kind of a program design, the MEL needs to be very properly structured and um, proper capacity building for innovators should also take place when it comes to the MEL part. I think for the ecosystem barriers, we've also worked around it by working with the banks and giving them like capacity building to have alternative risk assessment to move away from the traditional collateral requirements for women. We also did targeted onboarding to address some stagnation in user growth in women end users. And we've focused on or shifted towards onboarding more women-led or owned organizations to naturally diversify the inclusion within the portfolio. My suggestion, so other than the MEL, I think mapping barriers early is a very important part. So programs should map local cultural and legal barriers to scaling, such as, for example, the land rights or sector-specific stigmas at the design stage and integrate these into targeted support strategies for innovators. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mena. You have preempted the suggestion questions well and answered for us, but that's like a very holistic approach right from starting early. And then I think what I heard from Bhatana as well, like it's the no one size fits all approach that is required in programs like this. And then you work according to the stages and context of the innovator that they are operating in, and then pivot and align your support accordingly. while keeping under the guidelines of the program. So yeah, let's move on to Sasmita from the Asia Hub, who also moderated a lot of our gender sessions at the convenings, plus was the gender advisor for the hub. So Sasmita, over to you.
Thank you, Jatin. I want to first start by congratulating all our innovators in the program who went through this journey of integrating gender in their business, because while it's a business focused activity, it's also a personal journey for many of them, because for the first time they're getting sensitized about a lot of these concepts which are not very obvious as we design teams or build businesses. So I think there was a lot of that personal journey that we saw happen as part of the program, and I think the hope is that it stays with them even as we move on from the program. um, so beyond what my colleagues have already suggested in terms of the early assessment, working with them on action plans, etc., I would add a couple of points that we thought worked well within our hub. One is orienting not just the innovator, but also our internal teams on what gender integration looks like across each of their independent functions. So if somebody is working on investment, or somebody is working on enabling environment, or country coordinators who are engaging with innovators, what does gender integration look like within their respective functions? Because that allowed it to be not a siloed conversation, but a more fluid conversation that became a part of every discussion. Then working within innovator teams across the board, because sometimes there's need to be, obviously there's buy-in requirement at the senior management level, but then when you implement some of these recommendations, it has to be done by different members of the team. So therefore, working with innovator teams on gender integration was a very critical aspect. In the technical assistance, we not only looked at gender as a specific or a additional support, but integrated it in all forms of technical assistance. So if we were doing a end user financing TA or a market research TA, the idea was to be able to show the innovator the opportunities that lie by identifying market segments that they haven't tapped into before, by understanding female user needs that could definitely help them expand their market, whether it's through digital marketing or on ground marketing, hiring the right kind of staff to be able to reach new end users who they had not catered to previously. So I think that became a very important element. And the recommendations that came as part of this support, whether through action plans or technical assistance, we realized it's not enough to just recommend. We have to work with them on the plans as well, like helping facilitate each of those partnerships, connecting them with the right partner organizations to implement some of those recommendations. Because sometimes if you want to connect, if you want to tell them like this is how you can support financing for women, you also have to connect them with organizations who can build such financial products in association with the innovators. We also used gender-based prevention of gender-based violence as a strong concept in how businesses look at risk, because we often think about gender integration as increasing the number of women, but a lot of gender conversations are also about leadership among the company and the staff and the team. That includes men. So men have to be part of the conversation in form of how allyship can be created, how they can motivate and guide their teams, how they can prevent gender-based violence within their organizations, given the different positions of power they occupy. So that was like a key critical conversation that came up through convenings, through discussions, but also through pre-award survey policy design, where gender-based violence prevention was also looked at as a business component that innovators should work on. And finally, there was support around gender mainstreaming through investment. sources, the 2X certification, which allowed a lot of innovators to see the value of investing in gender mainstreaming, because at the end of the day, it becomes a differentiating factor for them to attract a new pool of funds, and identify them as front runners in a movement towards better gender equality. So I think a lot of these things work together to motivate many businesses to look at gender mainstreaming. The challenges, I think, remains obviously because of the context, because of the financial barriers sometimes to implement some of these recommendations. Oftentimes because there are competing business priorities. So it has to be a constant reminder, and working with, therefore, the innovator teams becomes very important so that it doesn't get lost when you are trying to build a new sales strategy or a new communication strategy. So I think that barrier will always remain, but we can definitely work through it if the intent is there. I think the buy-in and the intent becomes very important, because then the barriers get mitigated over a period of time. In terms of further suggestions, I would say one of the things that we could improve on is creating more specific allocated budgets for innovators to implement certain gender action plans, especially so that finance is never a barrier for them to implement some of these activities. Although in our hub, and I'm sure in other hubs also, innovators were encouraged to use their grant budgets to kind of implement a lot of these activities that came as part of recommendations, but kind of putting that pool together. And the other point would be to set a minimum threshold for everyone, so that at the end of the program, we are able to set a high bar and say all our innovators went through this level of increase in end users, or this level of increase in women within their organization, because customization can be in the approach, but where we end up reaching can be like a word movement for everyone on the same level. So I'll pause here and see if there are any further questions. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Asmita, for summing it up. I think between the three of you, as the audience can see, we have a very diverse set of practices and different practices that were incorporated at the hub. I think you and Menna have already given the suggestions for future programming, but I saw that Batanai still didn't give that. So I'll go to her. So Batanai, for your region in the context of Southern Central Africa, what would be your suggestion based on the learning from V4F that would benefit future donor programmings?
Thank you. So from my region, I would say that for future donors, I think they need to look more into not just funding the how part, because from the V4F program, I think what we funded mostly was the how, which is the innovation. But we need to move beyond to we funded the what part rather, not the how part. So we were funding the innovation. What is your innovation? Doing energy, so I'm increasing access to energy for women. But the how part then of enabling more women to access that innovation through the different gender integration practices, I think that was not funded. It leads mainly to what Sasmita was saying, that there needs not to be financial issues when it comes to gender integration. So if we want our innovators to improve on their gender integration practices, then we must be able to want to fund those practices. And so this could include expert consultations. This can include piloting new distribution models. We had a number of innovators that would say, we have this innovator, or we have this innovation and we want to improve it in this way so that we integrate the needs or priorities of women, but they don't have the funding for that. So that needs to be covered. And then there is definitely a cost in reaching marginalized women. We worked a lot with companies that would go into the deep remote rural areas, but they would not be able to go all the time because of funding. So there's that element that we need to really focus on and say fund those issues directly so that the innovator can be able and not have an excuse. And then the last one is we need to also maybe go beyond just counting the female participants. When we are designing our funding milestones and the success metrics, for example, we need to design them in such a way that they reward behavioral and strategic change within the innovators. We had innovators that would say we've changed our board composition. Now we have a woman, or we have increased women in our leadership. Those are milestones or metrics that are supposed to be actually rewarded in the design of our programs. So if an innovator adopts a gender policy, or if they launch a product that's women focused, or if they improve their women leadership ratios, that should be actually rewarded as part of our motivation and incentivization of gender integration within the innovators. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Batanai. I think the last one is a really interesting point. Like uh, a lot of us can get like why were we able to like achieve the results in terms of gender integration. And I think a big part was that the program's vision was to integrate and mandate uh, and serve those innovators who, at a bare minimum, have an intention to integrate gender positively. And a lot of times we did um, skip or not on select those innovators who did not show intentionality. So I think that's a key point which you all highlighted, and I saw it across the regions. What that did was it helped us to have a cohort which was positive towards the topic. And then whatever activities you all summed up at your level, it probably became a little bit easier for you all to work on those activities. But also taking this point on, there is it's important to have action plans, but a continuous hand holding is very important, because some aspect of gender programming are like strategies which can be worked on a short-term assignment. But then as you leave the strategy, and to give benefit of the doubt on the innovator side also, that they have a business to run, and with the challenging conditions and the different sets faced by the SMEs, it's not always a priority topic for them. And that's where like whenever they're planning a sales strategy or other business related activities, just trying to remind them, as you all said, I think probably helps them take a step back. And a lot of our innovators we saw actually appreciated that. At the time, they were like probably not happy reporting so much, and then we all always nagging them for this. But at the end of the program, as Kuan mentioned, and others, when they reflect, they probably see that it was supportive. And then a very important point is to summarize is on the budgets. Just like we mandate the intentionality of innovators, I think to support gender action plan, again, some sort of budget, either as part of the grant, as you mentioned, or an extra budget, depending on the availability, should be made available for those and exclusively those activities. And that probably will help uh, achieve more results within the programming. Um, and just lastly, I want to just summarize for, I mean, as a program working with mostly for-profit SMEs, we did have a very focused approach, and we reached it at the first year after all the hubs were onboarded, some needs assessment were done. After that, we reached this focused approach that we will focus on 2, 3 sheer topics where SMEs can integrate. One is on how they can increase more end users, how we can support more women-led, women-owned organization, both in terms of capacity building, but also in terms of access to finance, investments, and at the end user level, how we can utilize literacy trainings, financial inclusion, end user financing, because all that was in purview of our program. Gender is a very vast topic, and a private sector-led program probably can't uh, apply on everything, but having a sheer focus on few activities and then working based on the context, I think helped. So these are learning I take from all of you, and really appreciate your time, and especially the insights that you've shared across the region. And I'm pretty sure the audience can see that within the region there is different approaches that worked, and that is the final message, that not no one size fits all, always be um, um, focused on the size, context, situations, cultural context, as well as power hierarchies, and then pivot your offerings and strategies as much as we could try to do in this program. So yeah, so once again, thanks a lot, Kuyen, Dr. Ahmed, Ms. Rumbatsai, and then Sasmita, Mena, and Batanai from our hubs for joining us and sharing your lessons. Next week, we'll come up with our next topic, which will be on end user financing and how it helped integrate more end users from base of the pyramid communities. So do feel free to tune in for that same time next week with a session on end user financing. Thanks a lot, everyone who joined. I don't see any question, but we have noted some of the suggestions that have been put in comments by the audience on the IRENA report shared on Indigenous women, and also the gender mainstreaming point made through the consultancy in Uganda. So we'll go through it, always share in our networks. So yeah, thanks a lot for attending this session, and thanks a lot for our panel for their extremely valuable insights. Have a great day, night, depending on where you are, and hoping to see you all next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.